Liches are arguably the best villains that dungeon masters have to pit against high-level parties. They have a suite of devastating abilities and spells, plus their innate lore sets them up as calculating foes. Each Lich brings a unique flavor to being the peak of necromantic might and magical hubris. But with that individual flavor, we've found some archetypes that each main Lich from D&D lore falls into, and that you can use in your own development of a necromantic BBEG in your own worlds. Let's start with the most widely known of our three archetypal Liches, the Archlich Vecna, a famed undead that's been around in lore since 1976 and has since been a decade in pop culture spotlight. Of our three, Vecna is the most scholarly and, unsurprisingly, takes on the archetype of the Scholar. Vecna originally appeared on the planet Orth in the setting of Greyhawk, although since that introduction he's since made appearances all over the multiverse across the entirety of D&D's history. Before ascending to Lichdom, Vecna was a brilliant wizard who feared the one thing he couldn't control: death itself. In the lore, what comes next is split. In some stories, Vecna made a deal with Orcus, the demon lord of the undead. In others, it's through a connection to the serpent Moxlek. And in others still, he discovered it himself by experimenting on countless subjects. No matter the origin, the result is the same. Vecna overcomes death by becoming a Lich. Vecna's foul plans always surround his obsession with secrets, both magical and mundane. This obsession seems motivated by two main betrayals. The first was by a young student of his. You're going to hear more about him in just a little bit, so stay tuned. In many stories, this was a student of Vecna who distinguished himself by arranging for his master to be attacked so he could step in and save the day. After this manipulative maneuver, Acererak became a star pupil, and when the treachery was revealed, Vecna began to hold his cards much closer to his chest, literally. The second betrayal came from the warlord Cass. Cass was a servant to Vecna, gifted with vampirism and a dark blade. However, that sentient sword began to fill Cass's mind with thoughts of betrayal. In the end, he betrayed Vecna at a crucial moment, severing his hand and his eye and destroying his body in the process, turning an already wary Lich into the master of secrets and deception he's now famous as. Though even in his weakened state after that betrayal, Vecna was so widely worshipped as a master of secrets that he became a demigod. His next attempt at ascension was an attack on Sigil, the City of Doors. Vecna invaded the Ring City seeking to remake reality, only to be rebuffed by the mysterious Lady of Pain. However, the next time we saw Vecna, he had somehow achieved divinity and held true domain over secrets. No one knows exactly what happened in the background. Well, someone probably does, but not officially. However, we do have a theory. Famously, gods cannot set foot in Sigil. They're banned to the point that the Lady of Pain punishes anyone who worships her for fear that she will be evicted from her own city. If the Lady of Pain wanted Vecna out for good, no matter the cost, a spark of divinity might have been a cheap price to pay. So it doesn't seem like that big of a stretch to assume she gifted Vecna that divinity as a shortcut to get him bamfed out of town. A win-win for both parties. Vecna, from his simple origins in the flavor text of a magical item, all the way to the time-hopping antics of Eve of Ruin, is undoubtedly the Scholar. His plans are based around obscure rituals and tightly held secrets. As a villain, he can exploit any weakness and find any secret, leveraging his knowledge to make allies into enemies and powerful magic into feeble displays. When you run a Lich that fits the role of the Scholar, you can flex every bit of lore that the party ignored and use every secret they thought they kept. No magical secret or ancient prison can be hidden from an ancient academic with a love for power. So, when you're making a Lich, consider the Scholar. They have little in the way of allies, but they make up for it with those forced into service, and with pure arcane knowledge. Our next Lich is the architect of lethal and horrifying traps, Acererak. Acerak also came from Orth, but he was more prone to traveling through not just realms of reality, but the multiverse itself. Acerak was the previously mentioned student of Vecna and learned the secrets of Lichdom from his master, especially after tricking the Archlich with the plot we just mentioned. Acerak is less an academic and more an artificer when compared to other Liches. He was prone to always making foul arcane machines that forced his will onto the world. Acererak is iconic to the history of D&D. You can even spot him on the front of the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide. This fame comes in part from his best-known work, the Tomb of Horrors. Acererak was behind this classic lethal dungeon, which was made specifically to grind up over-leveled player characters. It has an immortal place in the history of TPK machines, right alongside the Suit of Armor and Curse of Strahd's Death House. But this was far from the Lich's only franchise of torturous dungeons. Acerak traveled the multiverse, seeking great artifacts and treasures to lure more adventurers, and he had his fair share of attempts at the title of ruler of all existence. In one of his most iconic efforts, he took up residence in a secret city at the horizon between the Outer Planes and the Plane of Negative Energy, the plane that basically fuels all undead. Acerak often created great arcane machines with flavorful names like Eldritch engines for his grand schemes. This included a frankly super cool plan to devour all the dead gods in the Astral Sea to ascend beyond divinity. His affinity for impassable dungeons led other Liches to trust Acerak with their own soul jars. His dungeon in Tomb of Annihilation held over a dozen. His own soul jar remains something of a mystery. What was believed to be his soul jar was destroyed in a 4th edition adventure, and yet the Lich still returned soon after. A common theory that we also share is that people kept looking for the soul jar in one of Acerak's dungeons, but his soul jar was one of his dungeons. The Tomb of Horrors itself functions as the feeding ground, and those that die there are consumed to fuel his eternal life. In case you're confused, the word phylactery was swapped to soul jar in 5th edition. All that to say, Acerak is very different from the Arcana-obsessed Vecna. We call his archetype the Architect, a creator of great and terrible magical contraptions hidden in equally vicious dungeons. An Architect is a solitary creature that pursues their ambitions far from prying eyes. Every hall and room of their lairs are full of nefarious traps, brutal constructs, and shambling undead. In your own games, an Architect will play the part of the mad scientist, making terrible machines and horrific abominations for the players to tackle head-on. As they get closer and closer to the source of these threats, they will come to understand just how long the Architect has been working on his evil traps. Our final Lich on the list is a political mastermind that leans on the greatest strength that a Lich has: immortality. If you watch the D&D movie, then you may have seen a cameo from the Zolkir of Thay, Szass Tam. Szass Tam was one of the many Liches that made up the highest ranks of the Red Wizards of Thay. The Red Wizards were a comically evil group of conquering casters who constantly tried to take over corners of the world. As of now, in the lore of D&D, Szass is the mostly undisputed ruler of the entire nation. After dispatching his opponents and securing the fear or respect of his allies, there was no other way to go. In various disguises and working through agents and proxies that allowed him some distance, Szass worked his will across the face of Faerun. Szass is, unfortunately, the most inconsistent of the three in the lore of the realms and the adventures that feature him. We know from description and history that Szass Tam was a brilliant strategist and master manipulator who could outsmart even his ancient and powerful peers. But adventurers need to be able to win. The result of this is a Lich who was a mastermind in the background lore, but is mostly just an incompetent stooge in adventures. But in the background, Szass Tam was the last Lich you wanted looking at your corner of the world. Szass played other Liches and nations against each other like pieces on a chessboard, forever playing the long game, happy to wait a few decades for problematic figures to die of natural causes. When that didn't work out, a massive army of undead could usually take care of the rest. Szass was even one of the few to have made it through the Spell Plague. After being consumed in the terrible plague, he managed to cut a deal with Bane, the god of tyranny, and secured a 1,000-year extension on his undeath. Depending on how you read the lore, he might have already escaped this promise. But even if he didn't, an escape plan is sure to be in the works, only to be revealed when Szass Tam wishes. Szass is unique in one other area. He seems, as much as a Lich can, to value his allies. Szass is implied to treat his faithful servants well, and even offer honors and patience to adventurers that outwit his schemes, often exclaiming the joys of an even match. Although, your victory might actually be another part of his long game plan. Szass Tam represents our last archetype, the Mastermind. These liches don't hide away in dark dungeons for long, and they don't study for centuries to enact a plan that takes only a week to fulfill. Masterminds push pieces around the board from places of public prominence. They get their enemies to attack each other and then kill who is left weakened at the end. When the situation becomes too volatile, they retreat for 100 or 200 years and then let the situation cool down while they work in the background. The threat for them isn't that you won't discover their magical secret in time, or that you're gonna miss some clever trap. It's that even your valiant resistance might just be another part of their sinister plan for the world. All of your efforts might be playing right into their hands. Putting a Mastermind Lich into your game invites the players to be wary of enemies and suspicious of allies, no matter how close or far they may seem. So that's our big three in the world of D&D. Picking from the different styles of Lich types can offer fun challenges for your players and keep you from making generic fantasy necromancers that lack variety. But would you place one of our three examples differently? What liches in your home game fit one of these types? Or are they a new and exciting type we haven't mentioned? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe and stay foolish.